Hey everybody, what's up? I wanted to bring this video out to you guys. It's a little update video on my review for the two-handed weapon skill set, because I feel my past review I just didn't have enough knowledge of those skills going into it, and thus I didn't rate them right in my opinion. Like, I think there are better. There's some of the skills that I said were bad are actually really good, and so on and so forth. So this is like a little update on that, so I hope you enjoy it. Alright, yes, this is my re-review of the two-handed weapon and the two-handed weapon skill set and passive skills. And the first skill I wanted to talk about is of course Cleave. This skill is pretty good. It's AoE for one, which is kind of needed. It's like the only AoE skill for two-handed aside from one of the passives, which gives you AoE. I'll go into that in a little bit, but Cleave, it basically does some pretty good damage up front, and then does a little bit extra damage over time for 10 seconds. And then its morphs are Carve and Brawler. You'll want to use Carve if you like gaining additional ultimate, which is, it can be pretty useful. You get you gain one extra ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds, so that can come in handy. Otherwise, you have Brawler, which gives you a damage shield for each enemy hit, and the damage shield itself isn't like a ton, but it's basically like like a free block, so it can be pretty useful. Plus, it increases per the amount of people that you hit with Cleave. The next skill at your disposal, and arguably one of the most important, is called Stampede. This one allows you to basically just lunge at the enemy from a range of 3.5 to 22 meters. It has a somewhat hefty stamina cost, but that's okay. It does half-decent damage and always causes a critical strike, so that's kind of neat. Now, I would always go with the morph that reduces enemy movement speed by 60% for 8 seconds, at least for PvP. Otherwise, if you're in PvE, go with the morph that increases your damage by 68% based on distance. This next skill is your bread and butter crowd control skill. You're going to be using this skill a lot in PvE and PvP. It is called Wrecking Blow. It does an absolute godly amount of damage and combines a 4-meter knockback with a 3.5 second stun. It's super great, and I would definitely recommend you always use it in any situation. It is excellent. And I would also go for the morph that grants you Empower for 5 seconds, and this increases the damage of your next attack by 20%. So basically, you would use Wrecking Blow, and you'd get that 5-second buff, and then you just wind up a heavy attack, bam, 20% more damage on your heavy attack. Excellent, excellent combo right there. Alternatively, you could go with the other morph, which takes away the extra damage on your next attack and replaces it with a debuff on the enemy, which reduces their attacks by 15%, their damage, for 10 seconds. And this can be useful, especially in PvP, if you're going for a build that allows you to out-tank your opponent. So that's not bad at all. It's also useful in PvE. So honestly, both are pretty useful in that regard. Both morphs. On low health enemies especially is called reverse slash, and this is an attack that does a decent amount of damage. Definitely not as much as the previous skill, but your damage increases up to 300% against wounded enemies. And this is like the greatest skill to use to finish off somebody. You'll just like pop it back to back to back, and does a ton of damage, especially if you go for the Executioner morph, which makes it so while slotted, your two-handed abilities deal 16% extra damage to low health targets, which I do believe compounds on the reverse slash skill itself. So, oh yeah, just massive damage. You'll be using this to finish people off real fast. Alternatively, if you're looking for like massive AoE damage, especially for PvE, you'll want to use the other morph, as the damage from the reverse slash skill does 40% damage to nearby enemies. So yeah, that's for PvE. And your last skill, which I'm sure you'll be using a lot, is called Forward Momentum. And not only does this skill have a decently long duration, low stamina cost, but it also increases your weapon damage by 20% and heals you by a small amount every 2 seconds. This is a great skill. I have it on basically all the time. Now, one of the morphs allows you to, it reduces the cost of the skill and increases your immunity to snares and immobilizations for 2 seconds. Now, I think that's great. So, like, if you're if you're caught in something, you can just pop it and you'll have that immunity for 2 seconds. It can be useful. The other one, the other morph, will heal you for a set amount of health once the effect ends. And given that the effect itself is like 30 plus seconds, maybe it's useful in the right situation, like during a long fight, but sometimes, especially in PvP, fights don't even last that long. So, it's up to your discretion whether or not you find that useful. As for the passive abilities, you're basically going to want all of them. None of them are useless, in my opinion. All of them are, especially the final one, Battle Rush, boosts your stamina recovery by 15% for 10 seconds after killing a target. Since you'll be knocking people off with your reverse slash skill, yeah, you'll be getting you'll be needing that stamina too, since this a two-handed weapon like this is a pretty stamina heavy build. So basically, you could purchase all the passive abilities and use all 5 of the skills on your skill bar, and that would still, because all 5 of those skills give you a pretty good kit overall in really any situation. So that's my review of the two-handed weapon, and I'll be reviewing everything else the same way. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, please give it that like, I'd really appreciate it, and of course, subscribe for more. I'm going to head back in game, and I will catch you guys another time.